All right, this is it. This is the last one. And this is probably one that if Americans understand this, it will be the termination of the cancer we know of as, well, the slavery that every American has been under since, well, maybe voters registration, 15th Amendment, 1870, or since they made us all a commodity through the birth certificate of as of 1933. But this is where I hope everybody grasps. This might be the most important stuff of all day, that I've done all day here. As you can see behind me, I drew a picture of the house. What is the house? What I'm going to call it is, this is the house where all Americans reside. What does that make it? A residence. Okay? This is where all Americans reside. What do I mean by that? Remember, I said that every hospital in America is what? It's a charitable organization. And every charitable organization, every hospital is considered a foundling, F-O-U-N-D-L-I-N-G, foundling hospital. That's where all children born in those hospitals are abandoned and what? Adopted by the state. Where are those abandoned children put? In an orphanage. Let's just go to here. Orphanage. What is this orphanage? It is the House of Congress. The House of Congress. The upper house is the Senate. The lower house is the representatives. But it nevertheless is the House. It is the house where every abandoned child, every child born in a hospital in America, every single U.S. citizen exists. Let me, this is Black's Law. I'm going to go right off the bat to page, I'm not kidding, 666. And I'm going to explain what the term, the legal term, household actually says in Black's Law. It says the term household is generally synonymous with family for insurance purposes and includes those who dwell together as a family under the same roof. Now remember what your dad said. Your living, breathing dad, not your parents patrie, father, the state. Your real dad. What has he always said to you? You live under my roof. You live by my rules. Well, guess what? Everybody that lives in this house, that resides in this House of Congress, lives under house rules as well. What are those house rules called? Public policy. The house rules is public policy. Public policy. That means the Patriot Act. If you reside in their house, the Patriot Act is public policy. How about anything the Department of Homeland Security is deciding upon? How about the FEMA camps? How about the chemtrails? How about the fluoride in the water? Can they do anything they want to the children, the orphans in their house? Absolutely. Why? Because house rules is called public policy. Who's in charge of the public policy? Who writes public policy? The legislature. Do they write law where the kings live? No. They write policy for the law merchant, the Department of Justice, to adjudicate over. So in their house, you have the Department of Justice. To do what? To watch over the children, the orphans. Does the Department of Justice affect any Mexicans? No. Why? Because the Mexicans don't live in this house. They're not orphans of this house. Only those born on American soil, only those born in American hospitals public hospitals, charitable public hospitals, foundling hospitals. By the way, I said this earlier tonight or today. Everything I'm talking about right now, this House, Congress, the United States, anywhere there's a central bank in power, this exact same system is going on in your country. Doesn't matter what the House is. In America, or in the United States, I should say, is the House of Congress. But out in Canada, you know, in Great Britain, in Australia, you guys all have your own house. You have your own system. There's a birth certificate for everybody. What do you think? What was the first thing they did over in the Mideast when Iraq fell? The central bankers went in and did what? Well, of course, we know that they're just spreading democracy, but that's irrelevant. The point is that they set up their system of slavery. So anyway, let me read this one more time. I'm going to keep this last segment very, very short. The term household is generally synonymous with family for insurance purposes and includes those who dwell together as a family under the same roof. Isn't that what they are? Aren't we our brothers and sisters? We're all supposed to be one giant happy family in the United States, are we not? There's one thing I do want to talk about this, and if you had to see the last segment to see that the certificate of title was required for the Department of Justice to actually do what? Construct the trust around that piece of property. That piece of property that the Department of Justice constructs their trust around is the certificate of title. If you look up in Black's Law certificate of title, you see the word or the term insurance. Again, for insurance purposes. Why? Because they need somebody to pay for the children within the house. Who's paying for it? Who's insuring the children of this house? The 14th Amendment Trust takes care of all these children. And what is the 14th Amendment Trust? It's where all of your property goes. All of your fruit, all the fruit of your labor goes into the 14th Amendment Trust to do what? Take care of the orphans of this house. All right, so it says term household is generally synonymous with family. Okay, let's do this. Let's go over to family real quick. Family, a collective body of persons who live in one house and under one head or management. Can you believe that? Family. I don't remember all the names of apparently my brothers and sisters. Because it says here, a collective body of persons who live in one house under one head or management. This group here are the managers of your estate. Of your estate, 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 of your estate. They're the management team put in place by who? The bankers. The bankers. So again, let's do one more thing. Let's look up, let's do something interesting for people. We're going to go up and look up, how about domestic? I'm going to close with this. I'm going to tie up a few loose ends here, but I want people to see what the word domestic. Everybody thinks they understand domestic. How much time do I have, by the way?
Much as you want.
Okay, well,
Okay.
I don't want to,
You're 10 minutes.
okay, I'm at 10 minutes now. Let's do this. Here it is. Domestic.
Gosh.
Okay, so how many people, they always say that these guys in Congress are supposed to be what? Public servants, right? No. Remember that this house is a public house. Public house. This is the public, this is the general population, it's the general public. Understand it. What is the judge, the so-called judge, the administrator, what does he say? What is the jurisdiction that he's adjudicating? General jurisdiction. That is this jurisdiction. That's where the Department of Justice rules. There is no Article III court in this house. There are no Article III courts inside this house. Only Department of Justice. Here we go. Domestic. What is domestic? I said this in Season of Treason 2, I believe. The domestic. A household servant. A domestic is a household servant. Don't be offended, but it's not some Mexican woman cleaning up after your children. A domestic is a household servant. Who are the servants of this house? It is not Congress. They're the management team for the Bank of England. Who is the management? Who is the servants of this house? It is the orphans that live within the house. It is the paupers. The paupers are the ones that have no property. They're the ones that have to be helped. By what? By their parents. Parens patriae. That's who runs this house. Your new parents, after your birth, after the abandonment by your mother and father, your mom and dad, the living, breathing, they abandon you, not knowing what they're doing, to this house. You become a domestic servant, a household servant, for the rest of your life to the House of Congress. Don't you ever wonder why everything you want to have happen is opposite of what actually happens? It's because they're doing everything for your general welfare. This house is a welfare state. It is a house of welfare. Everybody in it is a pauper. Domestic, a household servant. Domestic as an adjective, pertaining, belonging, or relating to a home, a domicile, the place of birth. Who's born to this house? 14th Amendment says all persons born or naturalized. All persons. It doesn't say all people. It doesn't say all boys. It doesn't say all girls. It says all persons. All persons are commercial fictions. All commercial fictions are what? Registered to the United States. All persons are registered. All persons are created in this house. All persons are created in this house. Domestic, adjective, pertaining, belonging, or relating to home, a domicile, a place of birth, origin, creation, or transaction. All persons are in this house. The company you work for is a person in this house. The company that owns the company you work for is in this house. All persons are in this house. All persons are 14th Amendment persons in this house. They're all corporate fictions. All of them, 100%. And they're all orphans. To be what? Managed by Congress. Why? Because all the children, the orphans in this house, their parents are the state. To via parens patriae. Let's go one more. I'm going to go one further here. Domestic servant, which is every orphan, which is every American. Hey, way to go, patriots. Keep voting. Keep participating in their system. You know what? It's your action, it's your will that keeps these monsters in place. It's your will. We just need, you know what? If we just get 2 good people in. You know what? Let's take that just for a second. 2 good people. If we get 2 good people, what are those people? Managers. Anybody in Congress, Senate, or representatives. They're managers of the House. Tell me what they're going to do to help the orphans. Nothing. These people are flying around in private jets. Why? Because they live off the fruit of your labor. You know what you need to look up? Usufruct. Usufruct. This is a system of usufructus. Usufructus is the managers get to keep the fruit of your labor. What is that called? Testament. The testament is the fruit of your labor, which is why you never hear of testament anymore. Every single attorney works with wills, but they don't work with testament. Why? Because all testament stays in the house. All testament stays in the house. Why? To take care of the orphans. To take care of the orphans. How do I know this? You know what's funny? This book right here, this was written in 1845. The High Court of Chancery. Pleadings in that court. It states in here, in 1845, what they were going to do in 1868 by creating the corporate U.S. citizenship. 14th Amendment. It's in this. 1845. You know what's funny? That's only 23 years later. I mean, the people that do this stuff, the monsters, the New World Order folks, the powers that be, they're working in advance. What we need to do is stop thinking that we're free, stop thinking that we were ever free, and realize that this whole system has always been British. Anyway, let me close with this. This is what you guys are, not me. As of November 29th of this year, not me. But this is what you guys are. You're domestic servants. Sorry. The truth hurts sometimes. Domestic servant. Domestic. What is domestic? All domestic is within D.C. Domestic is within the house. Think about it. Domestic. A household servant. A domestic servant. Here we go. A person hired or employed. There you go. Anybody that wonders where their IRS status comes from? You don't think you're an employee of the House? You don't think you're an employee of Congress? You don't think you're an employee of the United States? You absolutely are. You're a domestic servant. Domestic servant, a person hired or employed primarily for the performance of household duties and chores. By the way, doesn't duty come along with lack of responsibility? If you're liable for your life, do you have duty to somebody else? Absolutely not. Those people that take responsibility for their lives are not dutiful to somebody else. Again, the performance of household duties and chores. The maintenance of the home. And the care, comfort, and convenience of members of the household. What does that mean? That means everything you do is to make sure your brothers and sisters, your fellow orphans in the house, are taken care of. All of your labor, all the fruit of your labor, all the testament of your life goes into this house and stays there forever to help the orphans born into this system, the paupers. Finally, let's just close with this. And I'll go on a little bit, but I want this to be the close. Domestic authority. Domestic authority. The right of parents patriae, the right of parents, and by extension the right of teachers to discipline and compel obedience to their lawful commands and their children, formally extended to the authority of husbands over their wives. But listen to this again. You're wondering about the Patriot Act. You're wondering about Department of Homeland Security. You're wondering about all the crap that's coming down on you right now. You're wondering about the cops' beatings in the streets, or the tasings, or the brutality. You're wondering about everything that's going wrong in America today. Here it is. Domestic authority. The right of parents, patriae, the right of parents to discipline and compel obedience to their lawful commands and their children.
And compel is by force.
To compel is force. See, what's going on here? It goes like this. Mother creates a character through her hand, a new person. The person is subject to the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment person is a creation and resides inside this house. It's not the 14th Amendment that is trapping us. It is our willingness to participate. The moment we stop acknowledging their world, the moment we stop wanting to be inside their house, the moment we take what? Responsibility for our lives, is the moment we move out. For those of us that are adults, again, ultimately, if your mom or dad or both or any combination, doesn't matter, if they say, you live under my roof, you go by my rules. My only question to close out on this is, if you don't want to live by their rules, what must you do? Move out. And be responsible for yourself. Yes, you in the back? Anything?
And that goes back to your reaching the age of majority. The true age of majority.
Age of majority is to take responsibility for your life. In other words, act through your will, your body. And what is that? What's a product of your body? A product of these actions? The testament to your will. The testament to your will is what? Is the product of your will. And you know what? If you don't want somebody else to take care of your sorry ass, move out. But when you move out, you can't keep asking your parents' patrie for your allowance. What's left over after you go to work. People think that they're taking from you through taxes and all that stuff. They're not taking from you. They're allowing you to keep what they already claim as theirs. If you live in their house, all of your product, all of the fruits of your labor is theirs because you live inside their house. One more thing, I could probably do this Columbo thing all night long. If you set up a trust, if you really are trying to keep your property to yourself, if you live inside their house, here's your little room, here's your little unit, here's your address. By the way, this is your address. If you have a house number, if you have a number that's related to where you think you live, and there's a zip code attached to that, you know where that zip code is? That zip code and your address is inside their house. Doesn't matter where you think it is physically. This is a fictional world, people. And that number, that address is inside their house. But anyway, what was I talking about? Trust. Here's your little room, and it has its own little dresser with its own little dresser drawers. And you put a trust together to hide your property. And you put a lock on one of these drawers, and you say, hey, that's off limits, that's my stuff. I have a question for you. You have a trust, you're trying to protect your stuff. Where is your dresser located? Inside your room, at your address. Where's the address located? Inside their house. Your trust, your property, is still inside their house. So, is it yours? I don't care if you think you have a trust that's protecting you from this system. Is it your property? No, because it's inside their house. The only way for you to keep what is rightfully yours is to do what? Move out. And that is your assignment for the rest of your life. Good night, everybody.